In order to pay for a vicar, there's got to be a certain level of income to provide for that service. For us to be able to do that, we had to use the church more than just on a Sunday morning. By getting the pews out of the church, it would create a flexible space that would indeed deliver that possibility. That gave us the opportunity to put in underfloor heating. The different options we considered were a gas boiler, air source heat pump, or a wood pellet boiler. A wood pellet boiler would have been a reasonable, sustainable solution, but there's quite a lot of maintenance and extra jobs that go along with it. Whereas the air source heat pump requires very little attention. In 10 years, we've had 2 service visits, and that's all. It's never failed us, it's never stopped working. I don't know whether you know how an air source heat pump works, but the best analogy is the refrigerator. It takes the heat out of the food, and where does it go to? It goes to that grill on the back of the radiator, so in effect it's heating the room that it sits in. But in the case of the air source heat pump, the heat is taken out of the air outside, and instead of the radiator grill, we have the underfloor heating. So in order to create the underfloor heating, the pews were removed. We insulated with clay aggregate, breathable, and on top of that, we formed a limecrete floor. It's similar to concrete, but it's breathable. We put in secondary glazing, we put in roof insulation. We also installed LED lighting. Even we put a spring-loaded door closer on the door into the church, because inevitably a lot of losses go out through an open door, and people would walk through the doors and leave it open. So the default position became closed, not open. The radiant panels were installed to top up the heat if necessary on the coldest days, but it's turned out we very rarely need them on. The cost of running the air source heat pump, it's quite attractive because you get 3 times the heat energy out for the unit of electrical energy that you put in. As a rough approximation, we use no more units of electricity now than we did before the reordering, but we use it 2.5, 3 times as much. So the building's not only used on Sunday morning, but it's used during the week, during weekday evenings. We fundraised for many years for the original reordering. Parishioners raised almost half of I think it was £110,000. And the other half was raised from grants. Lake District National Park have a remit to protect the rural communities, and it was that was the basis for them giving us some money. Our goal is to put solar panels on the roof. You probably notice that churches of England are oriented perfectly for solar panels. They all have an east window, they all have a south-facing roof, and this to me is an ideal solution for Ings Church and probably for a lot of other churches. That would mean that in fact we can run our heat pump from our own renewable electricity, at least for 50% of the year without access to electricity from the grid. In the summer, of course, we couldn't use all the electricity, but we would be providing renewable energy to the grid for other people to use.